All right, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining both Vicom and IBM for this special tasting event, which is titled Transforming Operations with Watson AIOps. We're looking forward to it, and we are glad you could all join us today. Please note that we will be recording this event today, but just the presentation portion of it, so about the first 45 minutes or so. So my name is Andy Jonak, and I am Director of Business Development for Vicom, and I will be hosting things today. So we are Vicom. We are part of Converge and part of a national platform of regionally focused software-enabled hybrid IT solution providers in the US and Canada and beyond, delivering industry-leading solutions and services to our customers. And as most everybody knows by now, Vicom was acquired by Converge Technology Solutions back in January, something we're all really excited about. So today's event is hosted by both Vicom and IBM, and we've been working with IBM for many years, decades actually, and they're one of our most important strategic partnerships. And we are an IBM Platinum partner, the highest partnership level that there is. And by the way, we were an IBM Platinum partner before we were acquired by Converge. And now as part of a Converge, our partnership with IBM only increases. So now let me introduce the others that are part of our event today, starting with Vicom. I'd like to introduce Lambert LaChapelle, who's a Senior Client Success Manager here at Vicom, and he's responsible for helping firms be successful through the use of IT solutions and services that Vicom provides. Also like to introduce Manoj Kabe, who's Vicom's Senior Director of EMS, or Enterprise Managed Services. So Manoj and his team work with firms to help drive operational and security efficiencies within their environments. Also like to introduce our featured speaker for today, James Mellinger of IBM. And James is the Chief Technologist for IBM's AIOps solutions across the Americas. Again, James is our featured speaker and SME today, and we're really excited to have him with us. Also like to introduce our other guest speaker, who is Brian Johnson with the Niche Import Company. And Brian is our wine expert for today. And we'll be hosting our wine tasting right after our presentations. We're looking forward to it. And as always, Brian, we're glad to have you with us. So Brian, if you would like to maybe just say a quick word on having everybody prep for the tasting afterwards, that would be great.
Yes. Thank you, Andy. And yes, just to kind of the preliminary, make sure you open up your wines prior, but especially the Chateau Macrani Saporave, the red. That one really has a tremendous aging potential, but it also has great when it gets aerated. So open that one up and then make sure the white's in the fridge. So that's pretty much it. Enjoy the events. Thank you, Andy.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brian. All right, so let me go through the logistics for today so everybody understands what's happening. So the event is scheduled. We have it from about 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on how long the tasting goes. And as I mentioned, we're going to be recording just the presentation portion of our session, the first about 45 minutes. We figure presentations are going to take about 45 minutes. Then we'll leave time at the end of the presentations for questions and then move on to our tasting with Brian. But if you do have questions during the event, even though we've parked some time at the end for Q&A, feel free to feed them up through the chat function at any time throughout. So we're going to keep everybody muted throughout the presentation, but everyone can certainly unmute themselves if they have any questions. Also, as I mentioned, we'll ask everybody to keep their cameras off during the presentations, or you can keep them off during the presentations, but we are going to ask everybody to turn them on during the wine tasting. And we'll be randomly selecting someone during the tasting to get an extra bottle of wine, but only to those that keep their cameras on. So a little bit of incentive at the end there as well. So we do hope that you find the event fun and the information presented today to be intriguing and most importantly useful, as what we're discussing today is something that we see as so important to the firms we are working with and talking to right now, which is about increasing operational efficiencies. So with that said, thank you again for joining us today, and let's get going. And we're going to start by just telling you a quick minute on who we are. So as I mentioned, the organization that we are part of is Vicom, and we are part of Converge now, as I mentioned. And we're part of a national platform, as I mentioned, of regionally focused software-enabled hybrid IT solution providers in the US and Canada and beyond, delivering IT leading solutions and services to our customers. And our areas of focus and domains of expertise include advanced analytics, cloud, cybersecurity, managed services, digital infrastructure, and talent solutions. And the solutions that we offer as part of our portfolio can help organizations wherever they sit in regards to the maturity level of their IT environments, their solutions, or their overall needs. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. So now what I'd like to do is turn it over to Manoj Kabe, Vicom's Senior Director of EMS, for a few minutes to talk about what Vicom does as part of our EMS practice. So Manoj, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and you're all set.
Thank you, Andy. First of all, thanks everyone for taking the time of your day and joining a session with us. Hope you all have a good time. And at the moment Brian told that we had to go and grab your the bottles and open the wine, actually I totally forgot about the presentation. I was just running to get my opener to get a wine bottle open. But jokes apart, I think many of you know who ICOM is. But for those who don't know, I briefly like to talk about our implementation framework that we typically help clients to deploy using what's an AIOps strategy. That being said, Andy, if you could have a, yep, thank you very much, Andy. As many of you know, the cloud provides an excellent opportunity to be faster for time to market, giving you the agility, scalability you need, and bringing the efficiency. But it has its own challenges to manage, and that's where our unique implementation framework is designed to address the challenges. We helping clients to plan the cloud transformation journey, get the visibility you need across these multi-cloud infrastructure, detect problems across environment before they impact your customers. And further, it allows you to automatically perform remediation or repeatable task. So this closed loop approach allows you to provide highly available, reliable services to your customers. Let's understand, why it is important. A couple of months ago, I was at IT operations workshop, and what I saw is exactly how a typical day zero IT operation looks like. I'm pretty sure if you look at the screen, many of you are very familiar with such scenario, right? You see data volumes are rapidly growing by different IT systems, networks, applications, and it is coming in different variety, different velocity. And by the rate, these cloud native microservices applications, ephemeral architecture changes, it challenges even further our ability to observe and improve. IT operations teams and SREs actually required that they need to be empowered with the data that they can not only use but trust and confidently respond and to take actions. So with this challenge, this even makes it IT operations life even harder and often challenging to manage. So this is where I think we see what's an AIOps helps customers to harness the power of data that you are collecting. Using NLP techniques, it gives teams and SREs the actionable insights from a structured data sets or unstructured data sets needed to proactively resolve the outage. It helps to connect the dots between your tickets information, your topology information, to prioritize what requires attention. And then it surfaces the best possible action to a workplace. Most of SREs use Slack, Teams, and it allows SREs to simplify labor-intensive activities by confidently automating it. So, I'm pretty sure many of you have a question. How do we start transforming this journey? How do we leverage our existing setup? Where do we really start? Well, the good news is, what's an AIOps leverages your existing investment in IT platforms, whether those are IBM platforms, non-IBM technologies, such as Datadog, Splunk, and APM tools, or Dynatrace and ServiceNow, Humio, what have you, are out there. It basically leverages your existing tool infrastructure. It discovers hidden insights and further helps you to drive automation and to augment your team efficiency. It does not require an existing installation of Netcool platform. Those of you who already are using Netcool, great news. You can actually integrate with your what's an AIOps with your existing Netcool infrastructure and gives you early head start to start accelerating your adoption of AIOps and leverage AI/ML capabilities that transforms your IT operations and automation. So you can leverage your existing Netcool investments. You can start leveraging your existing non-IBM investments and start leveraging the AI/ML capability that Watson AI offer. That being said, let me hand over to James from IBM. He's going to explain how customers are transforming their IT operations using Watson AIOps.
Sounds good.
Thank James. Thank you.
Excellent. Manoj, I'll take the ball back for a second because I'd like to introduce James. So everyone, so now we do want to turn it over to James Mellinger from IBM to discuss AIOps for us. Before I do, I'd just like to read his bio for everyone. So James is the chief technologist for IBM's AIOps solutions across the Americas. As a recognized expert in AIOps, service management, and enterprise operations, James regularly consults with executives and thought leaders to maximize information technology's role in improving business outcomes and has helped numerous customers achieve AIOps excellence. James is an insightful and engaging speaker with more than 15 years of experience in the field with a broad customer and solution background. His leadership has been recognized by many awards and honors, including IBM's what they call Best of IBM, a distinction that's bestowed on only 500 of IBM's 400,000 employees. And we're really excited to have James with us today. So James, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Go ahead and share your screen, and it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Andy. I really appreciate the insight. I tell you, this has really been an amazing opportunity. Hopefully everybody can see my screen from now. It's my headshot without any makeup there. Not really. Anyway, I really wanted to take an opportunity to kind of give you what I would classify as an AP course in Watson AIOps. Give you about 25 minutes to take what would ordinarily be a 60 to 90-minute presentation, hopefully introduce the folks on the call to what Watson AIOps can do for them. And hopefully this will lead to interest in having further conversations. And it's really personally exciting for me because finally we've gotten to where at a moment in time where the ability to execute has caught up with this grand vision of what AI could be and what AI could do for operations. And it's also a time where we're not having to beg for conversations. Every customer I talk to is asking about AIOps. Everybody is looking at it and saying, hey, what can you do here? We hear about IBM. We hear about what you did on Jeopardy years ago. We know IBM is a leader in AI. With AIOps, this is something we've been doing since before Gartner even coined the term AIOps. So it's a really, really exciting time for me personally, and especially when you consider just how AIOps has been successful, Watson AIOps in particular has been successful at helping customers really have IT as a differentiator and a business enabler. And that's really where things turn exciting. If I think about, going forward on this, how can we talk about what all kinds of tasks that we're looking to do? And one thing I really especially since I wish this could be done in person, hopefully soon enough we'll be doing that. I know Delta misses me greatly right now and Marriott too, so got to fix that. But everything I'm going to be discussing here today is generally available software, except maybe one or two items, and I'll point those out as we go through. This is also really an interesting time because as we mentioned in the intro, we hope you'll ask questions. We hope this will trigger the synapses, as you're drinking the wine, to come back and say, wow, I really like that stuff James was talking about. I'd really like to know more about X. We're more than happy to do that. And believe me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I made the working title for this session, IBM Watson AIOps. It enables you to drink because you want to, not because you have to. And I jokingly say that because this is really about how can we leverage the power of AI to be able to take the toil out of the day-to-day operations personnel tasks and make it possible to really refocus that onto doing things that differentiate the business, that enable those customers of yours and ours to really see your company for what it is and the market leaders that they are and that they want to be. If I think about, overall, why are we doing this? It really is to enable the IT teams to stop playing catch up. Every customer I talk to has said, look, we've got tools, we've got smart people. Of course you do. You wouldn't be in business if you didn't. But the thing that continues to be the challenge is they've got all these tools and all these screens, but when everything's red, what do you pay attention to? We're living in a time where IT more than ever is the face of the business. In the most admired companies, IT is a strategic business enabler. It is a differentiator. And we with Watson AIOps and Vicom can help you become exactly that. If you think about what we say when we talk about AIOps, this is a space that we're seeing more and more would-be competitors start to come into and rebrand their offerings. But really under the covers, It's not really AI. It's at best some level of machine learning. In most cases, it's only about a specific domain. By contrast, we introduced AI and ML into our NetCool family of solutions years ago, as I mentioned, before Gartner even coined the term AIOps or had a survey following it. And today, the Watson AIOps solution is a complete and holistic offering that provides you with complete coverage of all domains, all information types, from topology through observability, through events, through logs, through all the incident and trouble ticket data, all together in one integrated solution. One other thing that's happening right now is everybody I talk to is talking about adopting site reliability engineering, or SRE. And this is really a rare skill set. And those unicorns are hard to find. They're expensive and they're restless. If you really want to get the maximum amount out of your investment in SRE, most of my customers find they're still challenged with the daily grind, and getting to do that really cool stuff from an SRE practice has been elusive. If you think about best practice, SRE should really be spending less than 50% of their time on toil. Their focus, their mission is to automate. And to get off that hamster wheel, you've got to let AI do what humans can't. Okay. So when we talk about what this means in a shop, it all comes down to getting a handle on complexity. Every customer I talk to, they're experiencing an explosion in complexity as they move from monolithic apps to microservices, as they move from having everything in-house to hybrid. They're seeing that the number of things that could go wrong exponentially increase, but it gives them the agility, so they're still going for it. It's kind of, the double-edged sword. That said, everyone's got multiple clouds. Nobody I talk to says, no, I'm just using AWS. Because in fact, they're likely using AWS, and they're using Azure, and they're using Google, and hopefully they're using IBM Cloud. And they're likely using Salesforce. There are other things. So they end up with an average of about 6. Okay. So that said, the first mission is to simplify the complexity. Because of that, you see lots and lots of tools. Everybody's got plenty of tools. Everybody says, I don't need another tool. I need a solution that brings value out of the ones I've got and tells me something I don't already know. That's the mission here with Watson AIOps. Really being able to take it to the level of when everything is read, being able to understand what is it that matters, what should I do about it, and really help you to move along the journey. The last wave was really about going from being reactive to becoming proactive. But that's yesterday's news. What you need to be competitive, what you need to beat your competition, is the ability to prevent outages, to prevent the business impact. And Watson AIOps is exactly that, the ability to identify smoke before there's fire, the ability for you to identify the causalities that are really elusive when you've got all these different sources, the ability to identify a problem the first time it happens and to take action to remediate it before there's business impact. Okay. So that said, IT continues to grapple with all the things that are going on. There's challenges at the CIO suite to be able to understand, okay, I want to be able to innovate, but I also must have stability. I can't have downtime. There's the challenge in terms of complexity and scale. If I look at how many things are going on, it can often take days to detect and diagnose a complex issue. And that's just not acceptable, especially when you're talking about, you've got to see a flood of alerts. And really, most of those aren't critical, but the ones that are can cost a business an average of $420,000 an hour. It doesn't take a lot of those hours to make an investment in AIOps pay off, and then some. If you think about what this means, it's because existing tools don't cut it. I've seen lots of tools in my career that do one thing well, or pretty well, or okay, but the information becomes fragmented and it's very incomplete. You really need something that can stitch it all together, provide contextuality, and give you the that advantage so that I don't have to continue to refer to things by silo. I got to break down the silos. That's table stakes. That's got to happen, because your customers don't think about your services in terms of, oh, that's network element ABC, or that's database XYZ. Customers see your business as, I tried to order this from you and I couldn't, or I tried to get this service from you and I couldn't. Forget about downtime. The tolerance for downtime is long past. Slow is the new broke. And I often joke about the idea of drinking and priming. The idea that you want something, it shows up 2 days later and you don't even remember that you ordered it. Customers expect that rapid fire, I want it, I must have it, and it shows up. They have no tolerance for slow performance, and they'll quickly move on to the competition. So you have to ask yourself, how am I going to make sense of all this? What am I going to do with the signals that I've got? And it really starts to wear on the operations teams. All the noise really takes a human toll. More and more organizations are really finding it difficult, as I mentioned, to locate and maintain the site reliability engineer, SRE unicorns. And because of that, it's really difficult to build for the future when you're just trying to tread water and stay on top of the sea of red, and you've got all the noise from all the tools deafening. How can you know what really matters? And that's really where Watson AIOps is the solution. It's able to connect the dots, as Manoj mentioned. It's able to provide that context, and it's able to automate the response so you don't have to. In the shops I've seen that have embraced Watson AIOps, we're seeing amazing return on investment in a remarkably short time to value. And that's something we'll talk more about as we go along. Okay, so this is a picture of the process that we saw in a couple of our customers, where they had 10 or 12 different tools and a process that happened over and over again. They would get an alert that would come in from PagerDuty, and from PagerDuty, they'd have to then go into Splunk or some other tool to look at the logs. And from there, they'd have to go into their APM tool and see what shed there. Then they might have to go in and look into ServiceNow and figure out what else had been said about it. Might have to send some emails to folks to get the tribe together to all start trying to solve a problem. And over the course of time, what we saw in the studies we did in the early adopters, we're talking about 4 hours to 5 hours just in terms of solving the problem, talking about a huge number of manual steps, 10 or more people getting pulled into it, and an average cost of about $135,000 for that resolution to come to place. And Einstein once said, one of my favorite quotes, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So what I'm saying to you is, continued investment in these tool silos isn't going to improve your operational outcomes. And when you think about what you need to do to be successful, it really is, how do I solve these problems? They're way too manual, way too subjective, way too dependent on tribal knowledge that is possessed by only a handful of people. All of the tools on the screen might be saying the same thing, but in 15 different ways. And that equals a long time to detect and an even longer time to evaluate and resolve the incidents. That's not good. And all this leads, as I'm sure many of you are shaking your head right now, if I could see you, all of you are probably thinking, and this leads to the dreaded bridge call at 2 a.m. with 50 people on it, and every one of them trying to find the quickest way to say, not my problem. So when I think about what this means, it's finding a way to use AI to triage all the signals from all the tools to do something meaningful, or better yet, let's prevent it from happening in the first place. And that's exactly where we're taking you on this journey with Watson AIOps. I want you to keep this example in mind as we go forward, because we're going to revisit this and see exactly what this has meant for customers who've embraced and adopted Watson AIOps. Andy, just a quick check. Any questions so far? All good?
Let's see. No questions as of yet. We have some time. If anybody does have any questions of James right now, please, you're more than welcome to.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And again, I'm very cognizant of the fact I'm standing between you guys and the wine. So I want to keep the eyes on the prize here. So that said, if you look at the world with AIOps and what this means, traditionally customers were taking up to 2 days just to detect, just for the smoke to become fire. And then for them to see the time that it took to identify, okay, exactly where is the fire? Exactly what do I need? What is it that has the problem? Oftentimes another 12 hours. And then the time to diagnose, okay, what is it that I need to do to fix it? another 24 hours. Add to that the time implementing that fix, another 6 hours. And then the amount of time that takes to actually come to full resolution, yet another 6 hours. In about a dozen, this is a synopsis based on about a dozen adopters of Watson AIOps. And they're seeing that after embracing Watson AIOps, the amount of time that it takes to detect becomes real time. The opportunity to actually identify the anomaly in real time from those observability tools to be able to make sense of, okay, exactly where's the problem, also real time. The opportunity to diagnose and determine my course for repair, 2 hours or less. The amount of time it takes to implement the repair, depending on how much automation you've embraced, approximately 2 hours. And so you're talking about a mean time to restore service down from over a couple days to as little as 3 hours to even less, to even being able to prevent the outage altogether. And that's really why this is such an important conversation for us to be having today. Why do you want to go with Watson AIOps? What is it that makes Watson AIOps different? When everybody's saying AIOps, 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 why should you listen to me? Well, besides us giving you wine, it comes down to our unique approach to taking in signals. The fact that we're very, very heterogeneous in our approach. We're not saying back up the truck and throw away everything you've got. This is engineered from the ground up to live with the tools that you've got. And oh, by the way, if you don't have Netcool, no problem. This sits well and plays well with all the other tools that are out there. I've got a couple Watson AIOps customers who don't have the first bit of Netcool, who've been feeding Datadog and Dynatrace and Splunk and Prometheus in. So hear me clearly, if you don't have Netcool, that's okay. If you do, we love you. That's my heritage, and I'm happy that you do, and I hope you continue to use it. But I want you to be aware that you don't have to have Netcool to be successful with this. And by taking in all these different all these different signals, because it's not a domain-centric AI, the ability to pull in observability data from tools like Instana, to be able to take log data from tools like Humio, to be able to bring in events from Netcool or other tools, topology from all these different sources, to triage all that together. This means that you can get through our pre-built and tested AI and ML, where we've trained it on existing IBM public and private clouds to produce results on day one. This isn't something you're going to have to be a year into before you're going to see results. We're talking day one. Includes the models for the hard stuff, the unstructured data. Because classically, structured data, events, that kind of thing, we've gotten really good at over the years. The new here is really being able to take the unstructured data and leverage NLP to go at what you've got in your logs that you don't know to even look for, as well as to be able to go into sources like your trouble tickets and your other tools where you've got the tribal knowledge for us to glean that insight to automatically build the remediation, to handle these huge volumes of data, terabytes, petabytes of data, and to intelligently and adaptively automate the recurring tasks. That's really where this is so powerful and so differentiated from anything anybody else is doing. And by Watson AIOps differentiating those core capabilities and discovering the hidden insights, connecting the dots across sources, this means we're able to really align and get into that dark debt complexity with NLP, really being able to do better fault detection and localization in real time, as opposed to it being a postmortem and an afterthought. And IBM Watson AIOps is completely uniquely positioned to be able to deliver this value. In one example I want to share with you, I have a large credit card services company that had previously gone down the path with MoogSoft, had spent about a year on and just getting it stood up, setting up the cookbooks, which takes a lot of very rare expertise just to do that, to manage the hands-on and manually supervised training, and just really building out those entropy noise reduction models, just to find that really it didn't really do an awful lot. It might have reduced the noise a bit, but it didn't really get them to probable cause. It didn't really get them to next best action. It certainly didn't get them to linking the topology across all the tooling that they had. And by comparison, we were able to come in and stand up our solution in less than a week and show success beyond what they had hoped to see by the 30th day. So this is really where I continue to see a massive differentiation in Watson AIOps versus the would-be competitors out there.
A quick question.
Sure.
See, the Watson AIOps, does it do a satellite outside of the corporate perimeter to actually execute all the NLP and the analytics, or will it be a completely contained solution within the firewall perimeter of let's say, financial company like a Barclays Bank?
Completely contained within Barclays or your four walls.
No satelliting outside.
No satelliting necessary.
Hey, James, Andy here. There was another question as well, that was fed up about talking about how, the trick to be able to absorb all those alerts from unique elements. So how does Watson do that? What's its process for ingesting? And if you're going to cover that after, please go ahead. But that was a question that was fed up.
I'll go ahead and lay an initial answer and then delve into it deeper. Thank you for whoever did that. It's kind of a volleyball set and spike here. I appreciate that. The connections to all the different sources are done at the API level. So the ability to collect the events, to observe topology, to be able to bring in the log data from a variety of different sources. We have integrations on the log side. We have integrations with tools like Humio and Splunk and LogDNA. In the case of performance data, the ability to bring in things from Instana and AppDynamics, Dynatrace. From an eventing perspective, Netcool, Datadog, variety of other tools, even open source tools like Prometheus. And those are all done API level integrations so that you're not having to build a massive data lake to rule them all. Does that, hopefully that'll give you an initial answer, and I'll delve deeper into it now, if that's okay with everybody. Hope so. Okay. So that said, how does Watson AIOps fuel your journey? It's really through three steps. It's deepening your understanding, helping you operate proactively, and really improve via automation. It's about being able to bring all the relevant data together in whatever form those are, whatever tools those are. So being able to start with your unstructured data in your logs and in your tickets, being able to pull in structured data from all your monitoring that you've got out there, all the events and alerts from a plethora of different sources, 200 different sources so far fully integrated, as well as collecting topology information about how all of these applications and business services, what are they dependent on, and being able to pull all that information together. A critical thing to understand here is discovery as you knew it is dead in the age of microservices. And so we had to go a different route. That meant instead of doing the traditional discovery, nightly or every 12 hours or whatever we used to do, this is about being able to have real-time observers that link in at the API level to connect to your internal sources as well as your cloud sources to build the topology in real time as it's being built up and tear it down just as likely, and be able to see over time, how did things change, to be able to pull all that information together to help you deepen your understanding and better react to the issues by collecting all that information and give you the tools to deep dive and perform the automatic investigation without the manual detective work. And really, most importantly, what we've done that's most different here is, instead of the traditional way of doing things with yet another dashboard, being able to instead surface the information in the workflow of your choice. Now, for some customers, that's ChatOps. That means being able to interface via Slack or interface via Teams. We have those integrations. Interface via ServiceNow. We have that integration. Being able to, likewise, if you want another dashboard, we've got a great dashboard for doing this. To be able to have any or all of the above, even to the level of a headless API-driven interface, if you want to put this into your business process automation. So being able to do all those things together in context, to be able to provide that ability to continually surface to you the things to pay attention to, as opposed to making you dig down and follow a sea of alerts and see what's red and changing colors. That is 1990s. We're talking about what's the best practice for today, and being able to give you that surfaced information to say, based on our AI, this is what you should pay attention to. This is what it means. This is what the blast radius is. This is the impending effect. And if it's something that we've already learned through the AI, how to address, the ability, depending on your comfort level, to fully automate the resolution while simultaneously logging it, keeping all that information up, having all your change records, et cetera. You can have that as automated as you're comfortable with. So it's really a great way forward for your shop. And it's up to you to decide just how rapidly you want to embrace that. That said, Watson AIOps is now available as a cloud pack. What that means to you is all of the functionality together in one offering, one cohesive offering, as a set of containers that runs on top of Red Hat OpenShift. What this also means is it makes it deploy and be maintained that much quicker and that much more easily, because it comes with the Red Hat OpenShift entitlement, also more cost effective. A couple of things I want to highlight here in the overall view for Watson AIOps is you'll notice Instana in the top center for observability. Instana is not included in the Cloud Pak for Watson AIOps, but is tightly integrated. And that's a company that IBM bought a few months ago and is absolutely the top dog when it comes to the capabilities for full stack, real time. We're talking every transaction, monitoring soup to nuts, every second level, 1 second level visibility into your entire infrastructure. And it's just amazing when you put it up against anything that's out there. I hope that our next opportunity to get together, whether we do this in person or virtually, that we can have a full 30-minute session just on Instana, because I find it to be absolutely pivotal to the customers that have embraced it already. One other close friend of Watson AIOps is Humio for log ingestion. And a little bit about it, it's our log aggregation capability that enables you to, instead of having to be, saddled with the Splunk monkey on your back and having to decide, I'd really like to log it, but man, it costs a lot. Instead, Humio gives you the ability to log everything at a flat price, providing faster access than Splunk can do it, while requiring significantly less infrastructure at a dramatically lower cost. Win, 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 win. So these are things that I want you to think about in the context of and as part of the journey to achieving success with AIOps.
Hey, James, Andy here. So one more quick question that was posed is Instana the same as Netcool?
No, it is not.
Switch between them, please. Somebody asked that.
Sure. Instana is our observability platform. It was an acquisition IBM made not that long ago, just a couple months ago. And it is, if you think of what it does, observability takes the opaque system and makes it transparent. It gives me the ability to see the full stack of the applications, of the infrastructure, pull it all together. It would be something that would compete more directly with tools like AppDynamics, Dynatrace, New Relic. And quite frankly, it's been destroying, just slaying those other products because it was built from the ground up for the world of microservice-based applications. It's available both SaaS and on-prem. And it's as we go through, I think you'll clearly see just how this fits into the Watson AIOps strategy in terms of being able to understand and detect, plug that in so that then Watson AIOps is able to triage, decide, and act. That's how this all comes together. Does that make sense? Hope so. So if we look at what Instana is doing, it's a single platform that brings together all the data without manual intervention, discovering, mapping, monitoring in real time, ingesting all the metrics, all the traces, all that without manual intervention. And this really is unique in the market. It also provides a huge level of automation, being able to trace every single request with 1 second granularity. That's right, 1 second granularity with extremely low impact to the systems, and being able to have all that information and give you that probable cause, that anomaly detection for every single metric. This then gives you the opportunity to have context and have that stream-based processing so I can see how all these things are related, to correlate all them together and bring in any tooling that you've got. It's got integrations with open source and other logging tools. And it just really provides a holistic picture that couple that with the intelligent actions. It's got out-of-the-box capabilities to be able to remediate tons of different problems that are common in the application space. And so again, this fits in very nicely with the Watson AIOps story. And as we go forward, we'll be only more tightly linked into the Cloud Pak for Watson AIOps. In terms of our other friend, Humio, as a purpose-built log aggregation platform, with this is meaning that you've got the ability to have the Splunk monkey off your back, have an unlimited ingestion, do it extremely fast, and have a TCO that just is unparalleled. When I think about what we've done with other customers, I have one in particular that it was just shocking to see. They have a 20 terabyte per day ingestion that with Humio was 1.5 million annually. It saved the customer $4 million a year over what they were paying Splunk. $4 million a year. And that's just one aspect of it. You couple that with the fact that it takes so much less infrastructure to build out, and so much less infrastructure to be able to operate. It's an amazing complement to Watson AIOps. That said, it's not required, but it's certainly a conversation worthy of having. We have several shops that are dipping their toe into Humio to be able to contain the Splunk cost. We have others that have outright replaced it. So just something to be thinking about as you're looking at the different sources that you can feed into Watson AIOps, and things that are very, very close friends, if you will, with the overall value proposition of Watson AIOps. So that said, it's a journey. Watson AIOps and AIOps in general is a journey. And most of my customers are closer to the start of the journey than they are to the completion. And I would argue and say it's not really a completion. It's just really getting to what comes next. We're going to talk more about that. I said early on, everything I'm talking to you about today is generally available, with the exception of one or two things I'm going to talk about at the end that are part of this. Everybody wants to know, how great is the movie, but what's the sequel going to be? I'm going to tell you. So in this case, what we're talking about is you've got 3 stages. You want to be able to consolidate, prioritize, and track through a single source of truth, and really just get an understanding about how their operations are performing, and establishing that single source of truth can be elusive. And so that's really where most of my customers start. They then move on to getting into the anticipatory stage, where they can have an early detection. Again, identify the smoke before there's fire, being able to take proactive action to keep it from spreading, being able to take all the information from an organization, thread those sources together to provide the context, and feed that into the automation. So I can now provide an auto advice that can tell me what should I do about this, or better yet, just turn the AI loose and let it fix the problem for me. Let it operate, let it take the mundane tasks and automate them, especially when they're repetitive. Being able to identify that, I can tell you that this is something. I have a few customers that were early on adopters that have gotten here, and it is magical when you see it in production and you see them do these things that, again, just a couple years ago, people would be saying that sounds like sci-fi. That's Minority Report. Now, let me tell you, it's real. It's happening now. And this really just gives you a foundation where I can build trust and confidence in the system and automate more and more and more, because that's key to the SRE journey. That said, so in the understanding phase, it's really about how can I take all the tools that I've got, IBM and non-IBM tools, how can I get value out of this? How can I make sense of the noise and really be able to gather the relevant data and really understand how my applications and how my services to the business are truly performing in context. So it's not a question of a silo, but rather now being able to understand how my customer sees me and really be able to understand it for that. This means that I can now automatically group the events so that I'm not opening 100 trouble tickets, but instead opening one with the relevant information, the probable cause, being able to pull that from not just one tool or one silo or one domain, but to do it holistically, to bring in the logs, bring in the event data, bring in the non-structured data that's out there in my trouble tickets, being able to do all of this together automatically, regardless of the source of data, regardless of the domain, regardless of how many monitors you've got. This means IBM and Watson AIOps can help you make sense out of it and get ahead of it, get off the hamster wheel. When I talk about what that means as you move towards a proactive stage, the proactive stage is simply about how can I automatically identify and locate the downstream risks and what the secondary impacts might be. And we've done this with an award-winning blast radius and topology mapping. Our user experience consumability for dynamic topology has received multiple awards, and it really provides that at-a-glance understanding of, okay, what is it I should be paying attention to? What does it mean? What's impact? To be able to do this and identify potential performance deterioration and have that level of metric anomaly detection, what this simply means is you can take multiple sources of performance data, feed them all together, let the AI sort out what things are related to each other, what the causality is there, and identify when it happens the first time, not wait until it happens the second or third time and you've built up a good run book on it. We're talking about mathematically model and understand what good looks like from what not so good looks like, and allowing the AI to call your attention to it when it happens the first time. And that's something that you just can't get anywhere else. To do that and automate the processes via the built-in correlation runbook automation. And as we go forward, future looking comment here, as we continue to integrate our robotic process automation through the WDG acquisition, this simply means that things that today are very manual, we're going to now be able to observe what the operators are doing and automatically build those run books to expedite the resolution. Okay. So as you move into the more advanced stage, the auto advice and the auto fix, that simply means how can I pragmatically leverage a combination of the AI models, the entity mapping, runbook automation, and all the analytics, so that instead of manually executing these things, I can have automatically created, curated responses to the problems that happen in your environment, and to be able to take the things that the subject matter experts or the site reliability engineers have traditionally created, tools like Ansible and the like. We can leverage those. We can leverage those absolutely, but also to, more importantly, be able to allow the AI to build out those automations. Remember, the best practice is you want to reduce manual toil. In best practice, less than 50% of an SRE's time should be spent on toil. So let's automate wherever possible. And Watson AIOps is crucial to enabling you to hit that target. So what is Watson AIOps at a lower level? How can we do all this that I'm talking about? Because obviously this is something a lot of customers have said to me, James, this sounds amazing. What's under the covers? How do you do this? And so if you start out from left to right, we start out with being able to group the types of data that we can feed into Watson AIOps. That means the sources of topology, the sources of metric data, or what I would classify as traditionally structured, a timestamp and a value, that kind of thing, the event data. And also the more unstructured or loosely structured data, things that are trouble tickets, where you've got 15 different ways to say, hey, Andy, my app is slow. Or the logs, in which you've got terabytes of data that nobody's looking at until there's an outage. The opportunity to get ahead of that, to see it in real time, to identify in real time in that unstructured data, in the logs, for AI to tell you, hey, this is an anomaly. You shouldn't be seeing this. This shouldn't be happening. That's really where I've seen the light go on in a lot of my customers, where they're like, wow, I can't believe what I just saw. Where we fed in a few days worth of example of what good looked like. And the AI model was able to automatically build, again, it's not necessary to have a data scientist engaged, allowing the AI to automatically build the model and identify what it's supposed to look like and call your attention to it the first time it sees anomalies. And that's absolutely an amazing thing when you see in person. And so we've done this with a series of 4 modules. Watson AIOps is made up of 4 modules. A topology module that brings in those sources of topology, keeps record of how things change over time, and is able to work across cloud native apps, VMs, bare metal, mainframes, all the above, all fair game. The metric manager for being able to bring in metrics from any number of different sources of performance tooling. The event manager for taking all the events in from various sources, things that are stateful in nature, and being able to group them, find the blast radius, associate that, and tell you what the anomaly is, what the probable root cause is. And then the AI manager that sits on top of all of it to provide that log anomaly detection, that natural language processing, the triage across the different types of information, finding trouble tickets and other things. What have we done in the past? That's a common question. How great will it be when you've got Watson AIOps in your shop and it's able to say, hey, the last time something like this happened, you did X, Y, and Z. And you can say, okay, great. Thank you, Watson. I'd like to do that. Guess what? Make a policy out of it. Automate that process. Off your hands. You can get back to playing golf, drinking wine, doing what you do best. In that said, put all this out there in a means that is maximum consumability. Put it out there in the form of chat ops, put it out there in the form of API level integrations, so that instead of chasing things down on 5 different tools, the story is populated in teams, in Slack, in ServiceNow's chat interface. So you can see what's the blast radius. You can see what kinds of similar incidents have occurred. You can see what the common solutions have been and interface with the tooling just like you would another SRE. It's amazing to see it all in context and see what this means when you start putting it in practice in your organization. So I mentioned that I was going to circle back. Yes,
Andy,
question.
can we try to wrap it up in about 5 if we could, please?
We're right on target. Yep. No problem.
Excellent.
Right on target. Thank you, Andy. Keep me honest. Keep me honest. I'm in the way of you guys drinking wine, so keep me honest. I can talk about this for a long time. In terms of what this means with today with AIOps, it means that that process that used to be 4 hours and 53 minutes, 17 manual steps, involved 10 people, cost $135K. We're seeing that in those same shops with those same problems occurring, we're able to get it down from first indication to remediation, 14 minutes on average, 4 steps, 1 person involved, and a cost of $6K or less. And the ability to do this across, to bridge those silos, to really accelerate the responses, to really be able to bring all these things together, to connect those dots and make the operators that much better. It's absolutely incredible what a return on investment that this has been for my customers. And I look forward to having those conversations with each of you as we go forward. I mentioned in the interest of time to move on to what's coming next. You've heard the movie, now you want to see the sequel. So in terms of where we're at today, we're already seeing at POCs and at implementations, a customer like a large telco we just wrapped this up with, they before were taking about 2 hours and 24 minutes on average. When we did this across dozens of occurrences over 3 weeks, they're able to see time to detect about 2 hours, 24 minutes and time to diagnose about 7 minutes because they got really good at it. In this proof of concept, they had near real-time identification of the problem the first time that it happened, being able to see it in the logs, see it in the performance data, stitch it all together, make sense out of it. And to really demonstrate, we also demonstrated the ability to leverage ticket data and say, these things were what you've done in the past, make an automated process to resolve it. That's where we're going to take that 7 minutes to resolve down to seconds. And that's where I'm really excited to go with the rest of you in our journey. Now, where we go with this going forward, Watson AIOps next, the version that'll be coming out sometime in second quarter, you're going to see as we start to bring in the AIOps capabilities to look at code as it comes in. We're going to now instrument the code layer so that as we see it coming in, we can detect what changes to the configurations exist. We can identify other prior runtime issues that have occurred. We've been able to identify and press forward in identifying potential issues with code so that now we can say, okay, in this test run we did internally on our own code, drinking our own champagne, eating our own dog food, whatever you want to call it, to go from 1,228 changes in the code, previously causing 17 incidents and having no visibility before it got pushed in, i.e. no idea we were going to shoot ourselves in the foot. Now we've gotten to where we're having predictive success of about 65%, and that's with the beta release. We hope to get this above 80 by the time we release it into full GA. But I found many customers have said, hey, we love 100%, but if you can keep us from shooting ourselves in the foot 65% of the time, we're in. So this is what's coming in the next release that's going to happen in second quarter. So that's not way out. That's not a long time out. And if you think about, lastly, closing up before we get into the wine, what are the next steps? I hope today's presentation has been beneficial. I hope that you found it interesting. And I really hope I hear from all of you saying, hey, let's have a follow-on conversation. And so what I'd like to do is if you are interested, we are offering free planning and consultation workshops. We will provide an SME to help you walk through where should we start? How can we get maximum value? How can we go forward with the desired outcome being, a report saying this is the architecture, this is the infrastructure, and this is the plan for deployment. And if you're interested, we're interested. So please be in touch. And I hope today's the first of many conversations we'll have. That said, back to you, Andy.
Sounds good. Thank you, James. I'm going to take the ball back for a quick check here. And okay. So excellent. Thank you. So everyone, we wanted to just, as we said, and thank you, great presentation, James, open up to a couple of of questions. We do want to open the floor for questions. There were a couple that were sent up through chat. We'll go ahead and address those, and then we'll kind of move on. So if anybody does have any questions they'd like to voice verbally, please go ahead and unmute yourself. But there were two questions that came up that, let me see, that we'd like to address, James. One says, and I might have the context of this wrong, but it says using blast radius, is that synonymous to impact? That they're using blast radius, is that similar to impact? Is that, if I'm saying that?
And by impact, are you talking about impact to the system, or are you talking about the product impact?
Product, capitalized as a product.
No, it is not at all similar to the product impact. It is referring, in this case, under the covers, it's the Watson AIOps AI manager coupled with the sources of topology information, which originated as Agile Service Manager and has since evolved as into the Watson AIOps topology manager, coupled with the associated capabilities to identify whether you have 1 or 100 different sources, what are the applications dependencies, what are the business service dependencies, and how are all of those things stitched together, related to each other, if you will. And when there is a problem, what other things are impacted by it, hence the term blast radius. That's visualized optionally on the Slack UI or the Teams UI or on a UI of your choosing, showing all the topology relationships, as well as, hence the term blast radius, an encircling showing what other entities are symptomatically impacted by it. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. Excellent. And one other quick one that was, I guess, you talked about leveraging ticket data. The question is it from ServiceNow?
Yes, it is. We have announced a deep partnership with ServiceNow, wherein we've always had, going back to the NetCool days, the bidirectional integration to open and close and update trouble tickets. Now we've taken it much, 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 much further into being able to glean sources of topology information from the ServiceNow CMDB, to gleaning insights about prior incidents and using natural language to process and identify similar incidents, incident similarity, as well as the ability to leverage ServiceNow's UI if you wanted to have that be your way to surface when there are problems identified and things you needed to work on.
Excellent.
All API level integrations.
Excellent. Well, guys, as we if there are any additional questions anybody would like to ask, please go ahead and pose them. Let me see somebody else.
I just have one question. So is Watson AI specifically, is it optimized for network alerts, or can it handle any kind of?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, it is not optimized for any certain domain. It's meant for across the board. As a matter of fact, the majority of our customers use it for leveraging across application space, but they'll bring in alerts from application monitoring technologies or observability technologies like Instana. They'll bring in information from network tools. They'll bring in information from logs, things in Splunk from the application logs or logs from Humio, and bring it all together in the context under the Watson AIOps. And so we find most of the buyers of Watson AIOps so far have been folks in the application responsibility realm. So those that are either developing the apps or those that are responsible for running the apps. It certainly has capability to be able to, if you've got I'll say this, I have a couple customers who their business, their bread and butter, it won't be hard to figure out who I'm talking about here, is the network. And they're already using this specifically for their networks, and that's their business. So that's where they want. But the majority so far are more application-centric uses. Okay.
Excellent. Well, so in terms of questions, Manoj and James do a lot of these sessions, and there are three things that tend to get asked, and some were addressed, but I think it's important to just put them out there. And so James, Manoj, ask you to each to kind of to address them in a quick and concise way, if you don't mind. I think Manoj, you mentioned it, James, you mentioned it too, but to reinforce that you don't have to have NetCool in order to use Watson AIOps.
Absolutely spot on, Andy. This is a space where, I'll say it again, for all those that do use NetCool, we love you. I appreciate it. I came to IBM through the Micromuse acquisition, so it's near and dear to me. But if you don't have NetCool, it is absolutely not necessary for you to have NetCool. We've got a number of customers already using Watson AIOps who don't have the first lick of Netcool. Folks that I use one in example, who had Datadog, who had Dynatrace, who had Prometheus, and wanted to be able to sort out, make sense of it all. They are also a ServiceNow customer. They wanted to be able to glean the insights and all the things that I talked about in terms of being able to identify the blast radius, tell them what next best action they should take, and get on the road to full-on automation where the AI can identify, hey, this is how you solved the problem last time. Let's make up automation to do that as opposed to manual. So absolutely, again, if you've got Netcool, wonderful. If you don't, still in the game, still 100% applicable.
Excellent. The other one was if somebody is using Netcool and Predictive Insights already, can Watson AIOps tie into that?
Manoj, do you want to take that just so people can hear your voice?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think we have been throughout the presentation kind of pointed this out, right? This is completely a technology agnostic, vendor agnostic platform. If you do have you are using Netcool, you do have IBM Predictive Insights to really monitor the real-time metrics, running the unsupervised learning algorithms. Absolutely great. You can leverage that data and feed into Watson AIOps to even further let AIOps use NLP and language models to give you that entity linking of various sources, giving that graph traversable mode to proactively understand infrastructure issues. So absolutely, you can certainly tie that off with Watson AIOps.
Okay, excellent. And the last one that people tend to voice is, what is the roadmap for Netcool? And the example that has been seen is if somebody's using NOI 1.6, what's next?
Yeah, no, I think this is, by the way, great question. This is definitely we see get asked often. And James, feel free to add on if I missed something here. But definitely, if you are already on the latest and greatest version of NOI, which kind of runs on OpenShift, you are already, I could say you're already on path of kind of adopting the next generation of AIOps capability using Watson AIOps. If you are using the non-OpenShift based existing NOI 1.5, 6 release, which are running on standard VM versions, we all are encouraging customers. IBM is encouraging all the customers to start putting together a plan to migrating them towards this new platform, which is again, kind of leverages existing Netcool investments, kind of ramp up to the next level and start migrating to the new Watson AIOps capability before September 2022. IBM is providing the strategy to start having this platform to be migrated so customers can take advantage of latest and greatest features by next year, 2022.
Thank you, Manoj. Yeah, the thing I'll just add to that is because we've so fully embraced the delivery via containers, we find that it makes it exponentially easier for customers to maintain and to upgrade and take advantage of the latest new releases by getting onto the container platform. And one of the things that's been especially interesting to me is as we've embraced containers, as we've gotten into all things microservices and rapid delivery, you're seeing that the new releases of functionality, the new AI models, the new machine learning, the new things that are introduced on every quarterly release are well worth taking advantage of. And therefore, that much more important that everyone's onto the latest and greatest platform and that everybody's able to take advantage of it. And by having it in containers, I think everybody that's already living in that world knows it just makes it that much more possible, that much more easily possible, I should say, for you to take advantage of and upgrade to the latest and greatest. It's not the same type of heavy upgrade cycle that once was years ago.
Excellent. Terrific. Thank you. Both Manoj and James there. So everyone, that being said, so look, thank you for attending our presentation today. And we really hope that you found the information useful. And really, most importantly, as we mentioned up front, relevant to your organization and what you're doing today, especially in today's challenging times. So if you're interested in hearing any more about the solutions we talked about, any other IBM solutions or anything that Vicom does, please feel free. You can reach out to me, reach out to your Vicom or IBM account executive. My contact info is here for a bit. And so as I get ready to turn things over to Brian to host our wine tasting, really want to say thank you again for joining us today. And thank you for considering both Vicom and IBM. And I always like to close whenever we do these to say, have a great day, everyone. And please stay safe during these times.